All right, so based off of some of the feedback that we got in the results from the survey, there were some people that were saying that they weren't seeing the results that they were looking for, that they wanted more core work, they wanted visible abs, they weren't getting as strong. So we wanted to give you all some pro tips. We also wanted to kind of debunk some myths whenever it comes to strength training, nutrition, a bunch of other stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and get into it. Making sure to hit up your 4 days a week at MAD is imperative. Go back and take a look at how many days a week you've been averaging over the last couple months. You might be shocked to find out that a lot of people are at around 3 times a week. 4 times a week really is kind of a magical number. So make sure to hit the 4 times a week. From there, I would also start to think about maybe bumping up in weight in class. You're always more than welcome to, and as trainers, we love for you all to ask us to, hey, can you watch me closely while I try and bump up in weights. You can also think about increasing the amount of reps, maybe if you're not ready to take that next step up. Maybe velocity goes up a little bit. So there's a lot of different things that we can do to add on what we call progressive overload. So another big thing is people not working for the entire work period, especially on something as short as 30 or 15 seconds. If we're picking up the weight and we're not actually getting into our first rep until 5 or 7 seconds in, we're missing a big percentage of our work period. So that's one thing to think about. Don't start late and don't finish your count early. Make sure to work all the way through the very end of it with impeccable form the entire time. On the flip side of things, maybe start to think about, have you been going heavier than you should? It's a little bit of a rarity for us to see this, but if your form isn't great, if you're only able to get in 2 reps of squats over the course of 30 seconds, you've probably gone a little bit too heavy. So feel free to ask your trainer, as this is kind of specific to each movement, as well as the length of the interval as to around how many we might expect rep per seconds and stuff like that. So feel free to ask your trainer on any given day. We should be able to give you kind of some loose answers there. If you're looking to add on some strength, another great and really easy thing to do is take a creatine supplement. So this is something that you'll start off taking somewhere between 3 to 5 milligrams per day. You'll be doing this for about 6 to 8 weeks. You'll go off it for 2 to 4 weeks just so that your body doesn't kind of get used to it. Probably the most important thing for seeing results, and not just from a fat loss perspective, but also adding on lean muscle mass, is going to be making sure that we're fueling our body properly. We're huge proponents of macro tracking just because it, again, is fueling your body with carbs, fats, and protein in a ratio that makes sense for our body so that we can utilize those to the best of kind of our ability. If we're way under eating on carbs, it's going to be tough for us to produce energy for class. If we're not eating enough protein, it's going to be tough for us to continue to build that lean muscle mass, recover, and all that stuff. So eating to fuel your body properly is really, really important. In most people, their ratios are way off, and maybe even caloric intake is really far off. So we would highly suggest taking a look at the nutritional blueprint, reaching out to one of us. We can put you in touch with one of our nutritional coaches up here, and make sure that you kind of get the most out of metabolic. We've had a decent amount of people ask for more core work. A lot of people also put in there that they want to see visible abs. The biggest thing that we want to reiterate here is visible abs do not come from doing core work. You can do no core work at all. You will still have musculature in your abdominal section. It is covered by a layer of fat. Plenty of us hold fat within our midsection, and to be able to get visible abs, for some people it's going to be really tough, but you have to focus on nutrition. Quit thinking about working out to get visible abs. It is all done in the kitchen. Now on top of that, we do a ton of core work here. You might not be lifting heavy enough to really kind of force you to engage the core, or you're just not actively thinking about engaging the core whenever you're doing a deadlift or a squat. But if you were to see a trainer take their shirt off and go do any of these movements, I promise you there's a huge brace of the midsection. So you don't need to sit here and do crunches for days on end. There's no need for it. Brace your midsection while you're going through movement within metabolic, and that is all that you need. And then go eat to fuel your body properly. And if you want to see visible abs, you're going to have some sort of fat loss to be able to do that. So we've had some people that have asked, how do they get more muscle definition? This is just a percentage of body fat. If we, again, have kind of a layer of fat going over our muscles, they're not going to be as defined. If your goal is aesthetics and you want to have more defined muscles, you need to focus on what's going on in the kitchen, and then you also need to lift heavy enough to continue to grow those muscles. So it's a two-part equation. You can't just grow the muscles and not decrease body fat percentage. So just something to think about, and if your goals aren't aesthetic, you don't really got to worry about it. So we had some people ask for more arm work, and they're essentially insinuating they want more isolated arm work. It's really not a necessity. You think about how many row variations we do, push-ups, presses overhead, even things down to goblet holds, rack positions. If we're doing all these properly, we're activating all the muscles in our upper back, triceps, biceps, forearms, grip. So again, this is making sure that we get the form down, and once we do, safely lifting heavier and heavier to be able to get kind of everything to adapt and grow. We have had some requests for the work period to be longer. There's absolutely no need for a longer work period. You've got to learn form properly, and then you've got to be able to safely lift heavy enough to kind of deserve and need that rest afterwards. In the beginning of metabolic, you most likely will not lift heavy enough to get your heart rate up as high on the strength-based movements. That's totally expected. Over time, though, your form's going to get better. You will start to lift more, and your heart rate is going to get close to as high, if not just as high, on the weighted movements as it does on any of the cardio movements. Again, once we get up to that point, you're going to need that rest period so that you can continue to work at that really high output. If we don't give you as much of a rest period, then cool, yeah, cardio is going to feel really exhausted, but the strain that we've put on your muscles and a few other things like that isn't going to be as high. So unfortunately, the fitness industry has kind of trained us to think of being cardio exhausted means a really good workout. That is really not the case. Whenever we're in the gym, we want to be thinking about building muscle. That needs to be our primary focus. And extending out the work periods for the point of cardio exhaustion it's just kind of counter to what we really need to be doing. So we had some people saying they wanted more cardio because it will help them shred more fat. That's not true. You can shred just as much fat through doing resistance training. Again, you're going to get a small, let's call it 10 to 15% of your total caloric expenditure through what you do in the gym. What you're doing outside of the gym matters a lot more, because that's 20 to 30% of, again, how many calories you're going to be burning throughout the day. And then also on top of that, the easier thing to do is focus on nutrition again. So think about what you're doing outside of the gym. How much are you moving, stuff like that? What are you eating? Are you fueling your body properly? Quit thinking about the gym being cardio exhaustion, all that stuff. You want to gain muscle within the gym. That's what the gym's for. If you're wanting to expedite your results, one of the fastest ways to do that is get your form better really quickly and be able to lift more quickly. One of the fastest ways to do that is going to the workshops that we provide to you all. They're just $10. It's an hour of much more individualized focus, and we're really honing in on just one movement, so it's easy for us to kind of expedite that learning curve. So if you haven't taken advantage of it, go do it. Go have mimosas, brunch with friends afterwards. Cannot recommend them enough, especially if you are within your first 6 months of metabolic. It's really, really important. And even from then, you might pick up a few performance tips if you're a 2-year veteran that all of a sudden change something for you, and now we're properly utilizing the right muscle groups and stuff like that. So go hit up the workshops for sure, especially boxing too. It's one of those stations that I think some people sandbag, or they don't get the most out of it, not using their core, using a lot of shoulders. Again, that's 20% of your workout. We want to make sure you're doing it properly. So go hit that up, go hit up the cardio machines, go hit up the fundamentals. They're all great.